Caddo Parish Commission Workshop, November 19, 2019, 3:30 o'clock. Order at this time. Mr. Hopkins, if we can have roll call, please.
Dominic.
Present.
Lyndon Johnson.
Present.
Jackson. Lynn.
Present.
Present.
Hawthorne, Gates Watts.
Present.
Middleton. Atkins. Chavez.
Here, sir.
Smith. Lewis Johnson.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
If we all can rise, we'll have Commissioner Bowman lead us in invocation, and Commissioner Lyndon Johnson, if you'd lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everyone, please bow your heads. Oh, gracious God, we just come right now with bowed heads and humble hearts. Lord, just thank you not only for this day, but this opportunity. Father, we thank you in advance for forgiveness of sins. God, I ask you to continue to bless each and every one of us who are here serving, and also bless everyone here present who are here caring, that you allow us to be productive and progressive in your sight. Father God, bless not only this city and this state, but these United States, and also the president that represents us as well, God. Continue to bless him and his family, Lord. Bless this world and continue, Lord, to let each thing become better than the day before when we left it. It's in these and other blessings we entrust in your Son, Jesus' name, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. All current and former military, hand to brow, all others, right hand over your heart. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everybody to our meeting today. I thank you for coming. I know we're starting to get into somewhat of our pre-holiday festivities, and we'll try to get you in and out as quickly as possible. Our next item is agenda addition. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I have none. Mr. Hopkins, do you have any?
No, sir, I do not.
We'll move to citizens' comments. Citizens who wish to address the commission must fill out a comment card and forward it to myself or the clerk of the commission. Comments by any citizen is limited to 3 minutes. Todd, I don't have any comment cards. Do you have any?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. If anybody wishes to speak, you need to fill out a comment card. It's located in the foyer and forward it to me. We do have a place later on to speak. So we'll move on to our next item.
Next, we move to visitors. Ms. Stacy Brown, Shreveport Bossier Convention and Tourism Bureau.
Stacy, how you doing today?
Good afternoon.
Appreciate you coming here today, as always. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your hard work, and I'll turn it over to you, okay?
All right, thank you very much for allowing me to come before you today, give you a little presentation about our 2019 budget, but also to talk to you a little bit about this year, our successes, and some of the things that we've been working on. We're going to bring up a slide presentation, and I wanted to tell you this is not the formal printed copy of the budget, in case you're wondering if we've gotten a little cheap on you. I do, that is being printed, so you will get a nice printed bound version of the budget in about a week or so, as well as our detailed business plan as well. So I apologize if that wasn't ready yet. Kelly Morris is your representative on our board, and she could not be with us today, and she apologizes for not being able to be with us. She has done a great job representing you. Well, let's give a little shout out to some of the things that we've been able to work on this year. This is a quick video to show you a little bit about Shreveport Bossier and one of the ways that we welcome visitors.
Hello, I'm Anjali Keister Evans, and I'm from the Shreveport Bossier area. There's so much to do in our area, from the culture, the cuisine, the community festivities. There's always something to do to have a good time. One of my favorite places is Abby Singer's Bistro, and there's always something there for everyone to enjoy. If you're vegetarian, if you like seafood, if you like just all kinds of different foods for you to enjoy. But let me tell you, that gumbo, oh, Chef Tony, is the bomb. What makes Shreveport Bossier so special is our welcoming spirit and our welcoming heart. Whether it's at the farmers market, whether it's at our Mardi Gras parades, we have doggy parades, our community parades, our crew of Soback and Harambe and Gemini and Centaur. There's so many parades, and it's such a wonderful time for Mardi Gras for us all to come together. But I really love this heartbeat of our city. What makes us so very special here in Shreveport Bossier is our culture, our diversity, the people and the various ethnicities that we celebrate often here in our area. And one of the places I enjoy going is right here at the Southern University Museum of Art here in Shreveport, where we celebrate the African and African American experiences through art and artifacts. And like I said, what makes us so unique is that we have a wonderful
So this is just one of the short little videos that we've created. Thank you. And if you've never seen Angelique Feaster and done a little tour of the museum with her, it's definitely well worth your time. We have done a number of small videos to put them on the web. One of the things when people search Shreveport-Bossier, it's not always the greatest images that come up, and we want to project a very positive image of our community. So one of the ways to do that is by making sure there are good positive videos, as well as some things that aren't as positive on the internet for people to search. Another success this year, we were named as one of the 8 certified retirement communities throughout Louisiana, and we were featured in Where to Retire magazine. Shreveport-Bossier Convention and Tourist Bureau was honored with Convention South's annual Reader's Choice Award for our 4th time. And House Method named Shreveport as the most underrated town in Louisiana. They went and chose one town throughout all of the states in the United States, and for Louisiana, they said that Shreveport in Bossier was the most underrated and should be thought of as a great place to visit and to live. Our domestic economic impact of travel and tourism is trending up. You'll see here in visitor spending for 2015-16, and at the bottom is 17 there on your left. And you can see that we've increased both in spending, in earnings, and then in employment as well. And then in 2015, 16, and 17, the bars that are vertical, you can see those are the state taxes that were generated by tourism, as well as the local taxes that were generated by tourism. And each of those has grown over the last year. And it's up even more in 2018. One of the things we also track is our international visitors. We don't get quite as many international visitors, but we do get a significant amount. And one of the reasons they're important is because they stay longer and they spend more money when they're here in our community. So one of the things we track is through Visa View, and this Visa View is actually tracking the money they spend on their Visa card while they're here in our community. So this is actual money spent by these international visitors in the Shreveport-Bossier area on their Visa card only. So it doesn't include any cash that money they've exchanged, or any other types of credit cards they may have, Discover or others. This is strictly their Visa card. So as you can see, Canadians are #1 international visitors by far. Others that rank way up there, also Mexico, Puerto Rico, Japan and China are climbing significantly. The United Kingdom, Australia, Germany also tracks well for us. And as you can see, it kind of changes a little bit by quarter as to which visitors are the highest producing ones for us. But we continue to work very carefully in the way we market to international visitors. We make sure our money is multiplied by working in partnership with the Louisiana Office of Tourism and also with Brand USA, which is the international or the U.S. marketing arm for tourism. That way our money is going further and we're able to be more effective in these markets. This budget presentation is just to give you a little overview of some of the things that we have upcoming throughout the year. We have seen an uptick in both our leisure, meetings, and sports tourism. But we've also seen some growth, as you know, from the Haynesville Shale coming back online, more in the oil and gas industry. Not just in the extracting the gas, but also in meetings related to gas. We've also been able to successfully generate some of those as well. So our board and staff got together and did some strategic planning and said, you know what, we want to look ahead. We're back on the upswing. We're headed back in the right direction. Where do we go from here? How can we be a model for catalyst of product development and destination management? Looking at the community and being brand definers by developing and maintaining the community brand and regional brand. Also making sure that financially and economic development wise, we're where we need to be as being a driver and a business leader. Working as a collaborative conduit that unites our region on branding, product development, and destination management issues. And that we're a model for national effective sales in conventions, events, sports management as well. One of the things we're doing is actually a study. It's called Destination Next. This study has been done through about 200 destinations throughout the world, not just in the U.S. And some of them closer to us, such as Irving, Texas, have gone through this process, Birmingham, a number of other cities. So we're looking for your input as well. So you'll be receiving that in the next couple of weeks, a survey. If you don't respond, we'll kind of be hounding you a little bit because we really want to get your input. But also feel free to send that survey out to others. We'd love to get more input. So if you have businesses that you're working with, whether locally or businesses that are looking to come into Shreveport-Bossier, you can send that questionnaire out to them because we're looking at not only what we have here in Shreveport-Bossier, but what are we lacking? What are the areas that we can improve on? And how do we move forward to develop the destination more in the future? In our communications department, our public relations has been extremely successful. We've generated about $2.7 million in public relations value year to date, with about 17,500 media mentions in group, convention, and leisure publications. Obviously, we don't have the staff or the budget to do that much, so public relations is very important to us in generating that free media coverage. Website statistics, so we had almost 602,000 year-to-date web visits on shreveport-bossier.org. This is a 41% increase over 2017, and those website sessions resulted in consumption of nearly 500,000 page views. So that's people that are not just coming on the site, looking for a second and getting off, they're actually going to a number of pages through our site, which helps them in their planning. We've also worked very hard to be very diligent in providing a great return on investment. So with some of our campaigns, we're able to track a certain amount of spending. So one of those campaigns we did in Mardi Gras, and we did the campaign in January and February of 2018. So this was an online campaign. So if you went online and you went to Expedia to book, we were able to track your room nights. So if you went and saw our campaign and said, hey, I want to go, but I'm a loyal Hilton Honors member and went on Hilton Honors, we didn't track you. Or, you say, I always book through some other booking engine, and you went on that, we didn't track you. But if you went to Expedia, we were able to track your rooms. For that campaign alone, we generated 21,388 booked rooms at an average rate of $97 for spending of a little over $2 million. That was generating just during that January-February campaign. We spent $110,500 on that campaign, and we generated a little up 15% over our 2017 campaign. We did a similar campaign in the summer from June to August. We booked 35,047 room nights at an average room rate of $96 for a little over $3.5 million in hotel revenues, which also equates to tax dollars. So that rolls over into your coffers as well. On this campaign, we spent a little over $89,000. We increased our spending a little over 10%, or our revenue generated from that campaign. In our group sales department, we booked 284 meetings on the books for January through December of 2018. Which equated to a little over 53,500 room nights, a 28% over 2017. We had 137,000 delegates for a 49% increase over 2017, and a $15 million estimated economic impact for our meetings in 2018. Some of our conference highlights: we hosted Miss USA and Miss Teen USA, Hart Energy HUD Gas and Energy Conference, the Casey Silver production. We do still have some movies coming into our community. Cyber Innovation Center related groups, the Southwest Dry Cleaner Showcase, and American Kite Flyers Association are just some of our showcase meetings. Future booked business, we had, this was as of September, we booked 39 meetings coming up with a little over 21,000 room nights for 2018 with nearly 50,000 delegates and an estimated economic impact of about $6 million is on the books for next year. So 19 of those conventions will be held at the Shreveport Convention Center, and 20 additional meetings will be held at other venues throughout Shreveport and Bossier. One of the new initiatives we've really been working on, we had done it several years ago, kind of put it aside and have gone back to it, is the Family Reunion Workshop. We produced this a few weeks ago. We did a workshop and vendor fair. It increased on the frequent individual travelers as well. And then revamping our military reunion efforts and driving more military business and working with the Cyber Innovation Center as well. And a refocus on the oil and gas market. And of course, the Sports Commission. In 2018, we booked 98 sports compared to 102 in 2017. But we were up in our hotel room nights, 26,320 compared to 24,333. For a little under 160,000 people compared to 107,000 in 2017. We were 170% over budget. Now don't freak out when you say over budget, because this was not over budget in expenditures, this was over budget in revenue. Over what we had budgeted for sponsorships and ticket revenue. So we were very successful in generating private dollars to assist with our public dollars in being able to generate more sporting events for the future. 18,000 attended the Red River Balloon Rally, and we had over 2,100 volunteers assist with our events throughout the year. One of the things we also worked on was revamping and working on our partnerships with the rural areas. So we had meetings with all of the rural mayors to see what were you doing, what could we do to help you generate more business. One of those was the town of Greenwood. They said there are some events that we need some help with. We've never hosted a Monster Truck National, and we've had Boot Hill Speedway in our backyard, but the city and the Boot Hill had never really partnered and said we'd like to do that. So we kind of came in, brought it all together, and with that, they were able to host a Monster Truck National at that facility. They were also open to the Open Range State Rodeo and hosting a special balloon glow in conjunction with the balloon rally. We collaborated with the town of Blanchard and the Caddo Parish School Board and Northwood High School on a U.S. Twirling Association competition. And we hosted several bass tournaments in Oil City and Vivian, and including the Lady Bass Anglers Tournament, the Fishers of Men Bass Tournament, and at Earl Williamson Park. We also worked with the town of Benton on a dog jumping competition. This is a dock diving competition. Okay. So that was really interesting. So we're always looking for new and different competitions. There is, believe me, a competition for everything. So some of our future book business is a kayak bass fishing nationals. Who knew? But we'll probably have about 1,000 kayakers in here next year in March to fish on several different bodies of water for their national championships. Repeat business is also very important to us. So we have booked the Taekwondo Nationals for our 4th year in a row. These competitors and families like coming here. They like our facilities as well as our hotels and the different things to see and do while they're in town. These regional events have a huge economic impact. We also hosted the state wrestling tournament, the ALAS regional and state archery tournaments, and these give our local students an advantage of being able to compete in these, have their local families be able to attend without having to drive out of town, but it also drives economic impact from those out-of-town families coming in to participate. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of what we've been doing over the last year. Through programs such as these, we've really been working to develop our destination by taking an active role in supporting infrastructure and looking at strengthening participation with our attractions, hotels, and restaurants and retail as well. And some other key areas of future are working more on product development. This Destination Next will help us identify what are some of those key things we need to go after and give us the groundwork for actually being able to help potential private investment be able to come in and take over those projects. I'm a strong believer in partnerships and working together, and so there are a number of subdivisions of the Bureau where we work together, such as the Louisiana Holiday Trail of Lights. Some of y'all may have seen that. We did our news conference last week. It was written up in the papers and some of the news media coverage of that. So we were one of the official members. This was our 25th anniversary for this. So 6 cities actually pool our funds, and we spend that cooperatively to drive more business during 2 of our peak need months, November and December. And we're kind of a hub and spoke for the majority of those visitors that are coming in for these holiday programs. We also have the Boomer Bus Byway, and that's a loop around 3049 up Highway 2, or up Highway 1 and Highway 2 on over into Claiborne Parish. The majority of that is in Caddo and Bossier parishes. And it's very important to us to help drive more economic development out into the rural areas through this program. And of course, the Sports Commission is one of our key divisions, and we'd like to say a special thank you to Commissioner Johnson as well as Ken Ante, your appointees to the Commission Board. They are very active and really help us to drive more events and look at spending those dollars appropriately and making sure they're providing the best return on investment. So now, if you will, pick up your little budget paper. If you'll flip over to the very back, you'll see there it has the Holiday Trail of Lights, the Boomer Bus Byway, the Shreveport-Bossier Film Office, the Sports Commission Reserve, and the Sports Commission Events. The Sports Commission Reserve account, when the Sports Commission Board started receiving the tax, they said, you know what? We want to set aside some money. So each month when we receive those tax revenues, we're going to put 35% into a reserve account that we will hold there and look forward to big and great events that we can bring to Shreveport-Bossier. Because usually when you want to bring something like a Bassmaster Classic, you've got to put down a $50,000 to $100,000 deposit. So you can't wait to accumulate that. So we've been accumulating some funds in that account, and we'll continue to do that. You also see the Shreveport-Bossier Sports Commission events. That events budget down there is strictly for the sporting events. If you flip open those pages, you'll see on this one that has the 5 columns across the top, sports, that is the sports department within the Bureau budget. So all of the staffing and the things that we do to bring the events is all in here. So the other page was to produce the events. So in here is the sales efforts, the staffing, the basic advertising and publications, the things that we need to do to be able to entice those events to the area or within the Bureau's regular budget. On the front page, or the back of the front page there, you'll see the budget comparison between 2018 and 2019. You can see that we did increase our revenue. We have increased our expenditures to match that. But part of what we've done is set aside some funds as well, so that if we have a Miss USA or another large event like that, we are able to step up to the plate and be able to bring that to our area. So overall, we're projecting to end the year with revenue up. Excuse me. And we are projecting just a slight increase in revenue next year during the year, bringing our expenses in line for a balanced budget. So again, Commissioner Dominic, President Dominic, Commissioners, Commissioner Wilson, appreciate y'all allowing us to come before you today and present you a budget. I'd be glad to answer any questions for you. And I'd also like to invite you to our open house on Friday, December the 7th. You'll be receiving a special invite, but you definitely don't want to miss out on that.
Stacy, got one commissioner, Commissioner Linda Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Stacy, I know you guys do a lot of hard work trying to market and advertise Caddo Bossier. One question I have is, what can we go out and say, or what is the main topic of push for like Shreveport and Caddo Parish? What are we known for? I know about the Sportsman Paradise, but that's real broad. But I need to say one or two words. Shreveport is this, Caddo Parish is this, and when we're out moving around, traveling different places, we can say Shreveport is home to this. This is the capital of that. What can we say?
And that's one of our challenges and our opportunities is that we are such a diverse community as well as a diverse destination. And so there's not really just one thing. A lot of places have the one thing that they really hang their hat on. Of course, our biggest destination asset is the casinos and still continues to be, but we have so much more than that. And that's why when we came up with the brand we've had for a number of years, Shreveport Bossier, Louisiana's Other Side, people said we were really a gumbo, really a destination of all the things you loved about Louisiana, but a little bit Texas too. So one of the things with the Destination Next, and as we move forward, is looking at, okay, that was done several years ago. Where are we now?
Right.
Are there new things that we can hang our hat on? How do we describe ourselves better in that little brief elevator speech that you're talking about? Because there are so many things when you talk to different people. Some are so excited about Sportsman's Paradise and all the great outdoors things to do. Others are like, no, we're all about the festivals and events. Others are, the museums that we have are tremendous. The food product is outstanding. So it's all those great things, and how do we sum that up? So that's part of what this research is for.
Okay.
Apologize.
Second question I got. On the conventions that come to Shreveport, is
Yes.
it more your group, or is it more the mayor and her office trying to get conventions coming to Shreveport? Or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination. What we found is that most of our conventions that we bring to town have some type of local contact. So whether it's a person with an association, that's a member of a sorority or fraternity, a business. For instance, last year we hosted the State Assessors Association. Our local assessor said, you know what, I'm a part of this board. I want to bring this convention here to Shreveport Bossier. How do you help me do that? So most of our conventions have some type of local contact, whether it's someone that's active on their board or just is someone that we sometimes reach out to someone and say, hey, we want to go after this convention. We see you're a part of that organization. How can we work with you to bring that group here? So we do work with others in bringing meetings and conventions here.
Okay. My next question, dealing with Mardi Gras. So typically Mardi Gras here starts like January, the second week of January, with Sobek doing their first ball and their parade right after that. But a lot of the advertising and the actual sense of most people thinking of Mardi Gras typically happens on the tail end with Gemini, Centaur, and Highland. But you have two major parades before then, and then you have some more crews that operate within that time frame. How do we encompass all of those into a marketing blitz? Because if we just catch in that last 2 weeks of Mardi Gras season, we're missing the boat on the other weeks.
And we
before
do,
that.
we actually have a Mardi Gras guide that's already in production. So we actually start way before the season. There's only so much advertising you can do before Christmas is over. Otherwise, it gets lost in that mix. But as soon as that is over, our marketing is ready to start. Some of it's already going on through our website and through, so some digital can go ahead and happen. But some of it does start at the 1st of January.
Okay.
But we do promote all of the different parades.
All right, and then the festivals. So we have a lot of festivals. Typically, most of them are in the summer. Got a couple in the fall, and 1 or 2 in the spring. But I think in order to say that this is an area where festivals happen, we need to have more festivals because they're kind of like stacked right on top of each other. And so you go into some months where there's nothing going on. Like, but I think they finna do something with the lights down at the Riverview Park for Christmas. But after that, there's nothing to the end of the year.
Oh, wait a minute. You better go on the ShreveportBossierFunGuide.com
Well,
because we actually have events going. There's something every weekend throughout December, end of November, December. So Rockets Over the Red will be this Saturday.
Okay.
There are several events at, of course, Christmas in Roseland goes throughout. But also Art Space has events along the Shreveport Riverfront. There's movies every weekend. But there are, the aquarium actually has a number of events coming up, so they've got something every weekend. So there are a number of things that go throughout the holidays.
Right, but what I'm saying is it needs to be more advertising for the general public to know that, and besides going to a website, because a lot of people are not going to the City of Shreveport website or Caddo Parish website unless they're looking for something. And if they're not looking for a particular item, then they're not looking on the website. And so we got to get the word out. Otherwise, it'll be a handful of people there instead of a bunch.
Which you will hear more. So some of that has been starting. There's not just web, but also some digital, a little bit of radio, some television. We spend some money here locally, but the majority of our advertising is spent out of the market. So we do some local, but most of it is outside the market to drive in those overnight visitors.
Okay.
But you'll see some digital billboards. There are some already up. You'll be hearing, and you should have already heard some radio and some television as well, for Rockets Over the Red and for some of the other holiday events.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Commissioner Akins?
Thank you, Mr. President. Stacy, this is a technicality. What is this column? Is this communications, the COMM? Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
that is
That's all I had.
communication.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chavez?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Stacy, first off, thanks for coming down here. You and Kelly Wells do an amazing job, so I'm glad you guys are heading it up. I'm looking at the budget for Caddo Parish and Bossier. On the revenue side of it, I see we're up to $500,000, which is good. But where is that 2.1 from Caddo Parish derived?
Okay, this is the hotel occupancy. This is 3%, the 3%. This does not include the portion that goes to the Sports Commission, the Independence Bowl, and RASA. So when someone checks out of a hotel room, they pay a hotel tax, and 3% is the portion that comes to the Tourist Bureau. So when I say Caddo Parish, that's the hotels in Caddo Parish, and Bossier Parish, that's the hotels in Bossier Parish.
What's the difference between? Thanks for the explanation. But what's the difference between that and the revenue from the room tax rebate at $500,000, 3 lines down? What's the difference?
Okay, when the Superdome was built many years ago, the state implemented a 4% tax to build that. When it was completed many years ago, a lot of the communities said, hey, we should get some of that rebated back to our community since it's generated here in our community. So of that 4%, the state said we're going to keep 0.03%, and that will fund the Louisiana Office of Tourism, although they don't always let all of it go to the Office of Tourism. So then the other 3.47% goes to the cities of Shreveport and Bossier, and some of that's divided up to a number of different organizations, and then 0.5% comes to the Tourist Bureau, so that's 0.5%.
And that's why it's the same. Okay, that makes sense. Second question, what do you attribute the amount of Canadians, why are they coming to visit the Mudbugs? Why are they here in Shreveport?
They love our community. They love the gaming, the climate, the attractions that we have to offer. But also, Mudbugs didn't hurt. But we are a great destination for Canadians. The international shopping is also a big draw for them because they get tax rebated on their state taxes rebated on their international spend.
Gotcha. Okay. And John, you missed it. They said Mexico has the second highest group. I would figure the jokes were coming, but I'll work on getting Mexico to first. Stacy, thanks for coming down here.
All right, thank you.
I'm not going to go there. Stacy, thank you for coming. Thank you for all your hard work, and thank you for coming each and every year for your explanation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hopkins, going back to our next visitor.
Next, we have Ms. Courtney Holderman, Deputy Assistant Secretary, Northern Regional Director, Office of Juvenile Justice.
Courtney, I know you're here. I know Heather Courtney's with you also, so glad for you to be here today. We welcome you here.
Thank you.
And I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Okay. I was coming here today to talk to you a little bit about Raise the Age. And I was asked by Ms. Stormy to come and speak to you all. So with the Office of Juvenile Justice, we're concerned about exactly what the impacts are going to be. We want to be ready. You know, this is coming. This is starting in March. So there's a lot of different factors that come into play. These kids who are 17, we're starting off with the nonviolent offenders, but these kids may be the kids that have had several crimes before, so they may end up more on the back end of the juvenile system instead of when they were adult. If they were considered an adult, they may be on the front end. So there's a little bit different ways that we may have to deal with them than maybe the adult system would, where maybe they would start off with a diversion. For us, they may end up in our secure custody. So we've done things. We have a new secure facility that's opening up in March. And we're also trying to amp up our independent living programs because we know we're going to have more kids, so we want to have the programs that can be more of a transition to get them back into the community, but in the community in a very positive way where they're getting their own housing and they're finding jobs, employment, getting them into college courses, things like that. So we've done other things within our agency, like add probation officers and also look for other programs. So we're working on a contract right now with Brandon House, and that's here in Shreveport, for independent living beds. But the reason why I'm talking to you today is you may also want to think about some of the things that the city may be able to do to help amp up what you may need to when we get the 17-year-olds. So a portion of Brandon House, it's split up into 4 different wings. We're going to be hopefully utilizing 2 of those wings, which may be between 70 and 80 beds for our independent living program. But they have 2 other wings that are available that they've talked about possibly turning into a detention facility, which is something that the city may be able to use on the front end. The Office of Juvenile Justice doesn't necessarily use the detention beds until after the kids are put in custody, and then we may have a few days, and then we move them into one of our facilities. So it's more so for the kids who are arrested on the front end. So I just wanted to bring that up if there's any questions.
Yeah, I know Stormy's
Sure.
going to have some questions.
Yeah.
So first off, you're here with the state. So you're basically saying, and we know that the Raise the Age Act is going to affect us and it's going to affect our detention center and the ability
Sure.
to hold, since we only have 24 beds. But you're talking about the state having to have the long-term individuals. That's one of the things you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to have the long-term effects.
And have y'all had to expand any of your jails? You said you had, or y'all were.
Right. We're opening a new secure facility.
Where
and
at?
That's going to be in the Acadiana Center in Bunkie. What we're hoping to do, the whole idea before.
So y'all not going to have one up here anywhere up north?
We do. We have it in Monroe.
Monroe, yeah. That
And
one's
then-
not going to be expanded though?
Well, no. We have the one in Monroe, and then there's a sister facility in Columbia.
Okay.
And then, so this will be the new facility in Bunkie, and then we have, of course, Bridge City. The idea is to eventually get to smaller facilities, more regional, add more. So what we're hoping to do is to drop down to 72-bed facilities, which is what we would like to have happen. However, we really don't know how many kids we're going to end up getting with the 17-year-olds. So we're still going to have the capacity to hold more than what we do now.
What would the Brandon House be used for as far as y'all?
That would be independent living, transitional living.
Okay,
So,
transitional.
right. So if the kids, they finish their secure program and maybe they're not ready to be on their own or to go back into the community in their home, then we could send them there and we could work on getting them reestablished in the community.
Well, the issue, ultimate issue we're having is, the 24-bed facility.
Right.
And that's a secure facility, and I don't know if the Brandon House will be able to be a secure facility to.
Right. It would have to be refurbished in some sort of way. And DCFS does the licensing for that.
I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Stormy Gage Watt. She's the chairman of our committee, and I know y'all met with her and took a tour of the site.
Yes, sir.
So Stormy, can you take over now?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you so much, Ms. Holderman, for coming today to address our concerns and any questions that any of the other commissioners has as well. I'm glad to hear this because we have had much discussion over the last year and a half, and to most of our opposition has been about what OJJ would say about using the facility, as Commissioner Dominic has stated, that a lot of the things that we were hearing is that OJJ would not approve a site like this. Could you briefly tell us what some of those recommendations would be for us as the Caddo Parish Commission would be to get it to the requirements, to the standards that are needed?
Well, DCFS does the actual licensing for the facilities. So even for for Brandon House, they're actually, for the transitional living, they're licensed through DCFS. And once they get their licensure, then we can contract with them. And it would be the same thing for the detention side. You'd have to have DCFS come through and look at the facility and determine if it would meet the standards available.
Okay. It was such a breath of fresh air to hear Dr. Boucher's his comments. He was very open and positive about how this transitional house could help us with the juvenile detention center and the challenges that we're facing. As many of us we have talked about it, we have vetted the process, and we know that that is just something that we cannot do at this time because of where we are as far as millages and
Right.
taxes, and it would not be advantageous for us to make a decision like that. So we know that we have to have something in place for 2019, and it's
Right.
going to even be a little bit more complex as 2020, approaches as well.
Yes.
So we're looking for short term, something to match the mission of what the Juvenile Detention Center is
Exactly.
to give, that temporary housing and make sure that they're in a confinement that is safe and conclusive to their quality of life, and to make sure that they have that education as they need also while they're in their confinement. I also wanted you to address, I think Dominic asked that though, about the other wings. And I think that you all are still saying that DCFS is the final call basically on how that transition house could be used
Yes, for the licensing.
for the licensing part. But from the other facilities that you already are in conjunction with and that you have services with, are they kind of matching that facility?
Well, for the independent living part and sort of like a group home
Yes.
type part, absolutely. It meets everything that we need for that. There's some other secure things that they would need to look into to make it so the kids couldn't walk out the door,
Right.
right? For a non-secure home, it is less secure. The doors are not locked. There's an alarm on them. But for the detention facility, it's going to have to be more secure. There are going to have to be some upgrades that they would have to do to the area to make
Right.
that work.
Right, but it is something that we can start to make some leeway in getting something done at that facility to see exactly what the requirements would be. So that is one of the things that I wanted you to make sure that we were comparing, those other locations to, as far as with this transitional home.
Oh, absolutely. I think it could be adapted.
Was Dr. Boucher at the tour storm?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, he was actually there, and he couldn't be with us today.
I knew
So,
he couldn't.
yeah, Ms. Holderman decided to come over, and we really appreciate that for coming over to talk about it. But we know that we have to have something in place to help us with these challenges that we're facing. So
Right.
I thank you for bringing our attention and giving us a brief update on just where we are, along with trying to work with this unfunded mandate that has been passed down to us.
Right.
Thank you.
We got a couple other on board. Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir. Ms. Holman, good afternoon.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah. Will OJJ be ready to go June 1st with this initiative?
Yeah, we're going to be ready to go in March when it
March?
starts. Mhm. Yes, sir.
Okay. Could
We've
you-
already added some probation officers, and our secure facility will be up and running in March, our new secure facility, and we have the new contract with Brandon House that will be ready to go before then.
So how much is your budget increase to accommodate that? You know?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't want to tell you the wrong
Okay,
number
but
for
significant?
that. No.
Okay, all right. What about other regional partners doing to get prepared for this, do you know? Like Bossier, Red River Parish, DeSoto Parish, are they coming on board with some plan?
No, we haven't heard any other plan. I will tell you this, throughout the whole entire state, the big issue is detention beds. There just simply are not a lot of detention beds throughout the state. Not every city and not every area even has a functioning juvenile detention center.
Yeah, Bossier doesn't have one, either the Red River and DeSoto Parish, so I wonder what they're gonna do.
Right, yeah,
get ready
it's
for
an
this.
issue.
Okay, well, thank you, we'll be in touch. I appreciate
Okay.
you coming today as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, President.
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes, sir. Thank you again for coming down. We appreciate
You're
it, especially here officially from statewide level. I was wondering, you were talking about suggestions, and I was wondering what specific things like that the new facility or the Brandon House may need in regarding upgrading, or that we can participate in. Do they need burglar bars, locks.
Right, yes, absolutely. It's going to be just upgrading what they already have now. It may be an automated system for their doors. They do have all individual rooms, which should work out nicely. But it's really probably sectioning off those two other wings so that they're not, so that the kids can't move from one wing to the next wing.
Thank you so much.
Question I had, did the state increase your funding based upon this?
Yes, we did receive some increases. I'm sorry, I don't have that number. with
Okay,
me.
I just wondering, I mean, you know, I know that the experts that we've talked to seem to wholeheartedly agree that this is a good thing, that 17-year-olds need to go through the juvenile justice system.
Right.
But the big issue that we got into was, you know, an unfunded mandate, an obligation by the
Absolutely.
Caddo Parish Commission or what other parish, you know, would house, for example, Bossier Parish.
Right.
And, you know, we're tasked with, oh, this is a new mandate, but we're tasked with implementing it. And it's made
Right.
it very difficult when our detention facility, which has been constantly brought out by different individuals, different judges, that we're the smallest in the South with 24 beds, and we're doing the best we can. But I guess the citizens, residents of Caddo Parish basically said they didn't, you know, in the past 3 tax elections that we've had have, you know, basically turned any increase down, and we're operating on 1958 millage. So,
Right.
okay, thank you. That was
I got
just
one more question.
Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts.
Thank you. Just one final thing that I forgot to say, Ms. Holderman. I just wanted to say the 2 wings that you all will be using from the state, you all will be taking care of the cost, anything that is affiliated with that, correct?
Yeah, well, we'll have a contract with the facility, and so we'll pay a certain amount of money with the amount of kids that we have there.
Okay. And we know that the judges will make the final decision on the fate of the youth and who goes where, but I think that it was very, very imperative that everyone heard from you and what the findings would be, and also to let them know that these 2 wings that you would be using would be funded or contracted in another facet from
Absolutely.
what we would be doing as the parish.
Yes, but, and I will tell you this also, though, once a child is put into our custody, if they remain in detention, we pay per day that they're in detention also.
Awesome. Didn't know that. Thank you.
Commissioner Lyndon B. Johnson.
Yes, I'm going to ask a couple questions. So the 2 wings that you guys will be occupying under contract with, would it be like a minimum security, or would it be close to maximum security?
No, it's more like a group home setting, so it would be what we would call a minimum security setting. They'll have their own rooms, and there's staff there watching them 24 hours a day, but they will leave to go to school, and they'll hopefully have jobs. So they'll be doing things in the community, but coming back to the facility in the evening and being there on the weekends.
Okay. So it would be set up totally different if we utilize the other 2 wings for detention
Right.
center?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. This might be directed towards Dr. Wilson, just for my clarification. This is a state, the Brandon House would be a state-run facility. So, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not on the juvenile justice subcommittee, so I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So, I mean, the Caddo Parish Detention Center, that's a temporary situation, and then those detainees, if they're found guilty of their crime, they may be referred to one of the state facilities. So this doesn't really help address any overcrowding that may occur at the Caddo Parish Detention Center. Is that correct?
It would if the other half of Brandon House was utilized as a detention
So that's
facility.
really what you're proposing here. I just want to be clear on what the message is here.
Right.
Are you suggesting that we, Caddo Parish Commission, may want to consider doing some sort of facility on those other 2 wings?
Yes, and it won't actually be a state-run facility. They're still a privately ran facility. We just contract with them to have beds.
State-funded, I'll say.
Right, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, the problem gets back into the same thing as the operational cost of that. You know,
Yeah.
what is that going to be? You know, we could go build a detention center, but the annual operating cost.
Thank you.
So
Right.
maybe it's at a lesser amount to where we could do something. And it's something worth very well considering and talking about with the committee. So
Well,
thank you, Stormy.
I will say one other thing too. You can have contracts with
Sure.
other judges throughout the state if you felt like there were enough beds available to sort of rent those beds out to other areas because
Sure.
they don't have detention facilities.
And we've talked about that, which is something we're just going to have to look at.
Right.
Commissioner Cawthorn?
Yes, I briefly stepped out, and this question may have been answered. If those other two wings that we're talking about, if they needed to be upgraded to provide the maximum security that needs to be provided, the onus would be on the Caddo Parish Commission, or the state, or the Brandon House.
It could be the Brandon House, it could be Caddo Parish Commission.
Whatever way we work it out contractually.
That's right.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes, sir. And Commissioner Atkins answered the first question, but pardon my ignorance. When you said minimum security in that facility on those two wings, does that mean security guard with pepper spray?
No,
or
it
a real
doesn't.
official?
It does. They're staffed,
Okay.
but they do not have pepper spray or weapons. It is a non-secure facility.
Okay, so they can. I'm tired of being here. I can get up and leave type.
No, they're not supposed to. If they do, they would be breaking their court order because they are actually considered in custody.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you for clarity.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Courtney, Ms. Halderman, thank you for coming and appreciate you
All right.
taking out time. We look forward to hopefully working with you. And Heather, do you need to say anything? You good? You sure you don't want to talk? Okay, we'll let y'all go. Thank
All
y'all.
right. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Bye-bye. Mr. Hopkins, turn it back over to you.
Next, we move to reports, administrative report.
Dr. Wilson?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Wilson.
You should have a copy of your desk. The October monthly financial report has been placed at your stations. I'm required to let you all know that each month that you're getting that document. Just one small caveat about the recent discussion we just had. The Cal Parish Commission, we have looked at real closely with respect to the Brandon House. You can only make improvements in your own facility. We can lease space, but you cannot improve capital in someone else's building.
Yeah,
Just make sure we understand that.
sure.
Okay. We have a presentation today from Mr. Kent Rogers, NL Cog, on our thoroughfare plan. That's the plan that's been completed. So, Mr. Rogers, the team will come forward and give you an update on what it looked like.
Kent Rogers, Executive Director, Northwest Louisiana Council of Governments, 625 Texas Street.
I can't quite hear you, sir.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, okay, get closer. Kent Rogers, Executive Director, Northwest Louisiana Council of Governments, 625 Texas Street, Suite 200, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71105. Also have with me Tyler Como with BKI. He's one of the BKI was one of the sub-consultants working on the project with us. Just wanted to give you all an update on the regional thoroughfare study work that we've been doing. Following completion of our long-range plan, we were asked to kind of delve down a little deeper, take the project down, look at corridor preservation issues, some other street functional classification issues and whatnot. We are basically in I guess you could say, final draft stages. We've been presenting the plan as it is to date to the different agencies, getting final input from them. We had 4 major components that made up the plan. One was defining those corridors that would potentially need some additional right-of-way, review of the corridor preservation legislation that's out there to date, review of the functional highway classification plan for all streets, from local streets all the way up. And then we also developed a design tool that's being used by basically the engineering staff and the staff members of each agency. You'll see in the packet that y'all got, there's a map, but I believe Todd forwarded y'all the email that has links to all the full documents on it, and would have a copy of the full larger map to go with it that y'all can spend some time looking at. Basically, the idea was to look at all the corridors in Caddo and Bossier Parish that would potentially need additional right-of-way. for the construction of those projects. We identified all those projects and then also identified what the functional classification of those roadways would be. The importance of that functional classification part comes into because anything that's listed as a collector street and above is eligible for federal highway funding. It doesn't mean it actually will get federal highway funding, it just means that it's eligible for that funding. So we went through a very detailed process of looking at each and every street and the current functional classification of those, and then what it would take, what they should be. Second part of that was looking at the legislation that's out there for corridor preservation. The state legislation is, I'm not going to go rattle through all the different acts and whatnot for you, but basically there's state legislation that allows for local areas to establish planning commissions. Then you'll see within there the legislation creating both the Shreveport-Caddo Metropolitan Planning Commission and also the Bossier Planning Commission and the various different other agencies. And then within those, the various ordinances adopting the different master plans and UDCs for Caddo and Bossier and City of Shreveport. As I mentioned, there was a part of that that looked at the functional classification of all the streets. You'll see an example in there of one of them that we identified that was wrong. There's actually one of the appendixes that's listed in the email. It's probably about this thick. We're going through each and individual street, how it's classified and what it should be. Just an example of how the feds had Gator Drive. If y'all don't know where that is, that's behind Eastgate Shopping Center. They had that listed as a principal arterial, and it obviously is not a principal arterial. So we looked at that and are working to reclassify all those streets. And last but not least, we had developed a design tool for the technical staff members to utilize. I know the city engineers used it quite a bit as they were doing some of the overlay projects. What it allows them to do is tag in the different types of streets that you're on, what the surrounding land use looks like, and what the current right-of-way is, and it can tell you what all can fit within those parameters. Where that's come into play is like on various different streets. If you're going down, just an example, a collector street may look one way if it's in a residential area, but look different in a commercial or industrial area. You don't necessarily have to have the same characterization through those different areas. So it kind of gives you an idea of what to expect as you go through different land uses for the different street classifications. Any questions?
Commissioner Bowman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know I wasn't going to find the thing on time, but under the design tool part of the NLCOG,
yes,
amcomonline.net, I was trying, can you give me some additional information on number 5? I know Commissioner Matthew Lynn worked hard in introducing and bringing, and we talked about the parallel in New Orleans, but where are we actually in Caddo and Shreveport in relation to actually developing?
Okay, there was maybe I'll help out. There was an enhancement project that was awarded for Caddo Parish. I know that some of the work is being put in place with DOTD to get those out for bid and out to do. The actual current where it's at right now within DOTD process, I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Yes, sir.
I'll be honest.
Okay.
I know that those funds were awarded through what's called the Transportation Enhancement Program. There were 3 projects in our area awarded. The signage project for Caddo Parish, a connector project up north for
Scenic Byway.
Yeah, the Scenic Byway program. And then the third was, I can't remember, it was a Sportrans downtown circulator project, which would also have some of that same signage, and there's some bike ped stuff to go along with it in there. What the design tool also does is as you go through there, you can define whether you want bike ped included within the project or within the right-of-way, and it shows you the different types, what would be appropriate along that type of facility of whether to have bike ped or not.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It's basically, what I was going to say is the design tool, what it's meant to do is to assist the person within Caddo Parish, whoever it may be, during the design process of these improvements where you're incorporating all that stuff. You look at your existing right-of-way, you see if you can fit a bike ped in there, where would you fit it, what would look the best, what landscaping you would want on the side to slow down traffic, and so on and so forth. That's what the design tool is meant for. It's not necessarily meant for a specific project,
Gotcha.
but it assists the designers in saying, okay, what can we do in this area? What can we help to make this project work better in this area?
Gotcha.
That's what it's for.
All right. Thanks for the clarity. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Mr.
Atkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Rogers, thank you for your time. We have an item on the agenda today dealing with the 3132 extension. Could you just brief us on where are we in the process for finalizing the corridor for 3132, and when might we know that corridor? Someone may have anticipated this question.
Actually, I was upstairs on the second floor talking about some of these projects just a while ago, and Tyler may be able to help. We have had the draft EA has been submitted to DOTD and Federal Highways for their comments and review. They sent several comments back. We actually had a conference call with DOTD and Federal Highways on this past Tuesday to review those comments and the responses back to those. The reason we did the conference call was primarily because there were comments that they had made that were on previously approved of technical documents that went with the project. So we just wanted some clarification as to why are we having to readdress some of these comments and whatnot. All of the comments will be sent back to them early next week, sometime, hopefully. We're looking at the draft would probably be available for review, public review, either the end of next month, early January timeframe, and then the public hearing would be within 30 days of release of that draft.
So the public hearing will be Q1 of 2019.
Correct.
And what comes out of the public hearing?
Any comments that are received from that public hearing would have to be addressed. There's not it's not a question and answer period. It is take comments and address those comments within the document. Then Federal Highways will review how those comments are addressed. And they will, on this project, what will be issued is what's called a FONSI, or a finding of no significant impact. It's because there's no environmental showstoppers for the project. That's why it's classified as a FONSI or an EA document.
Nothing to do with Happy Days, right?
Yeah.
Last one, I promise.
Yeah.
So, given all of this, is it
End of the
possible-
first quarter, early second quarter next year, we'll have the EA. At that point in time, once that happens, that's when corridor preservation, once we could start buying some right of way and doing some final design engineering contracts and all that could go out.
We've been moving along through a standard, well-established process. Of course, takes longer than we'd all like, but you hope by early 2020, we would be able to state with confidence what the corridor would be and begin acquiring property.
19.
Okay.
By 19, you could.
That's at the record of decision.
wait.
Finally goes in. You're saying, I understand what you're saying. I think by next year, we'll definitely know the corridor.
By sometime, I mean, early 19 or late 19 or.
If the FONSI, assuming that there's no showstoppers that come between now and the end of it, the preferred local alternative, which NLCOG as the board has approved or sent off and has been concurred through DOTD and FHWA, is B2. B2. Yeah, there's two B's, I'm not sure why, but B2 alternative. And that is the preferred as is shown in the report right now. So as we know it to date, B2 is going forward unless some showstopper
comes forward or FHWA says, we don't want whatever, this or whatever it may be. But right now, B2 is shown in the EA as a preferred corridor.
Okay, so,
As with all of these, we always have to put in the no build alternative. Always has to be included.
okay, and I understand that there are, there are no guarantees here, but if one were to want to start buying right away, when might we be able to start buying right away?
After that FONSI is signed,
So sometime in
early next year.
early 19?
Early 19.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you very much.
yeah. And not sooner.
You done?
That's it, Mr. President.
Commissioner Chavez?
Thank you, President. Mr. Rogers, thanks for coming down. On the four major components, I see defining transportation corridors, which may need future right-of-way, and then third point is review of the roadway functional classifications. Just out of curiosity, from the commissioner's standpoint, I know Robert Glass knows exactly what street that I'm going to test you guys on, but how have you guys identified these? Obviously, being the commissioner over my district, I know a big issue with a right-of-way that we have time and time again addressed to our administrative staff. How can we get this fixed? So I'm wondering, have you guys reached out to us, or have you guys reached with the administration to say, these are the corridors which...
Yeah, the what we call our technical committee, which is Robert Glass and various members of y'all's technical staff serve as what we call our technical committee too. We've worked numerous times and met with all of them numerous times to go over the map, go over different projects, go over areas, go over and with that functional class to literally go over each and every one of those with them. So they've been involved in this process from the get-go.
If I'm tired of bugging Robert about it, how do I bug you guys about a street that I need fixed?
What street you need fixed?
Professional guy.
It's in the city,
It's in the city, yes.
so they have ultimate.
Jurisdiction.
I bugged my city councilman as well, or the city councilman over that area. So
I'll write it down and find out when, where, why, and how.
and look, Robert's done an amazing job. He's even gone to the DOTD with myself over in Bossier. We sat down with those guys and hashed out all the different scenarios that we could try to accomplish. And then it's a sticky situation. I understand that it's not an easy resolution, but I think if we keep pressing on, eventually we'll figure out something.
Yeah, one thing that we're now having to look, one of the requirements that Federal Highways has put on all of us is to basically do what they call performance planning, which we have to look at safety measures, we have to look at preservation measures, various different categories of projects. So we could maybe see if we can't slide it into one of those programs somehow. And find some solutions for it and find some money for it.
I'll reach out to Dr. Wilson. And
The money's always the sticky part of
I'm just
everything.
hoping right. And if there's if the federal government's opening up the door for some grants, now may be the time to try to fix that road and those issues. So I'll reach out to Dr. Wilson on that.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. That's all, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Matthew Lynn?
Mr. Rogers, I'm on page figure 2 of alternatives of the 2012 3132 plan. Is that what you're using as your guide point for the corridor of 3132? Is that where I would find the B2 sample? Because there's a B1 and a B2.
You're correct. It's the B2 alignment
Correct.
within
Is
that.
Are you using the 2012 plan to pull the B2? Or are you using a plan that has been developed since 2012?
There's been refinements to the alignment since 2012. If that's the question. They should be. Is that on the where are you getting?
I'm on the Louisiana Department of Transportation /divisions /multimodal /transportation _planning /stage percentage sign 200.
It's probably just a zero report. Is what I think.
Yeah, there'd be some revisions to what you're seeing on that.
Where I'm going with this is that in this plan, it clearly has the land from zoning case appeal P-26-18 which we vote on today to move forward or not, for 56.5 acres of Railsback Ridge. And if this is the land that is corridor preservation, that the state of Louisiana and NLCOG is preserving for 3132, at what point in time, I guess, and you're saying after?
That's kind of the sticky widget that we're in
Right, well, I'm
now.
trying to push you on a sticky widget question, is that you have these people that own this land, and do we buy this land from them, or do we obstruct them from developing their land as any property owner should be able to develop? That's the question.
From the MPO standpoint and the way the state and federal process works, we cannot purchase right away or acquire right away until that environmental document is completed.
Then how can the government obstruct them from developing their property as well? Now,
If
granted,
you
today
go
the
back
price is one, but you stick
to,
a $10 million house on it, the price just changed.
right. If you go back to, I guess, this page and this portion.
What page is that on which document?
This is just one of the slides. They're not numbered. I think that was slide 2.
I can't go to it if you don't tell me where it's located.
It's the handout that was passed out.
Second page, bottom left.
Thank you.
It references the Shreveport, Caddo, Metropolitan, the Great Expectations Plan, and the need for a major street plan within that. And it also references to hence when you have a major street plan adopted, here's the legislation on the following page that you can utilize to do that.
Isn't that what we're doing currently?
That's the map and the data that we're presenting to you. Yes, that can be utilized for adoption as that major street plan.
And so back to the question, so where are we as a governmental body on overriding the MPC and their denial of the development of this property? Because we have some pie in the sky hope that one day we'll have an actual corridor preservation on that land and the land is paid for.
We're presenting this same information to MPC December 5th at the MPC meeting.
We all hold right there. And so Attorney Bernstein, in a courtroom, so if the parish were to deny them to be able to use this and uphold the MPC's position, and there's no corridor preservations in place, we kill it, and then my guess is with this amount of money, they would quickly get it into the court system. Where do you see the court system on denying a person the use of their land based on a hope that one day we'll have a corridor preservation in place?
Commissioner, I don't think that would be what would be the litigation would be about. The MPC made its findings of fact, and if the commission upholds it, the determination in the court, the question for the court is whether the MPC made its decision based on facts and established procedures. So there's a premise in your question that would not be before the court, I believe.
Okay. Where have you looked at P26-18 as it sits before us and the legal standing anybody would have on denying them the use of their property?
No, sir, I haven't.
Will you do that before Thursday?
It'll between now and Wednesday.
You gotta work on Thanksgiving.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, Thursday's Thanksgiving.
Honestly, there are so many variables out there that I'm not going to give you a definitive answer.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's the end of my questions, Mr. President. Thank you.
Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts.
I think I forgot what I was going to ask. Hello, sir. I just wanted to make sure, I hope that Fonzie will keep me with happy days with 3132 and 220, the lighting in between the areas of Jefferson Page Road all the way to Juella Avenue is completely dark. I know I talk about it every time you come, but I want to keep it on the forefront of your mind.
There's I mentioned earlier, there's these couple of different pots of funding out there, and one of them is the safety program, and it's on that list in terms of the safety program. I know part of DOTD, part of the area's goal is to finish all the trying to remember what they call them, the cable barrier projects within the area first, and then that's down the line from those. So
I'm sure they have all the proof that they need. There are crosses that are constantly going up because it's so dark, you know, during the
have a
evening
very
hours.
close friend who was in one of those. So
Wow,
yeah.
sorry to hear that. So I hope that that is definitely on the forefront of the listing. So I'm going to always ask about it until I see it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Dr. Wilson, you're up.
Yes, sir. I just want to make a couple statements. This thoroughfare plan is just a plan. There's no effect of law until you all enact legislation to back it up.
Okay, that's
Is
what I
that
thought
correct?
anyway, right? But what about?
It becomes
Correct.
law when
Correct.
this body passed something to make it law.
Correct.
Okay.
You can adopt any part of the plan. So the plan was done, or the study was done for the entire regional metropolitan area. That also acknowledges that there's differences between Shreveport, Caddo Parish, Bossier Parish Police Jury, and Bossier City's council. So you can adopt any part or exclude any part of the plan. And in this process, going through this, we've kind of changed the way, and NLCOG as a whole has changed the way of them adopting it and passing it down. Instead, realizing that there's several different formulas used in all government agencies here. You guys can adopt anything that you want to adopt in it, or exclude anything you want to exclude. So in other words, you want to include 99% of it except for these 2 pages, then that's the way you can do it. Similar to what you did for the UDC, going back and forth and reiterating to get it finalized, you can do it for this particular document as well.
Okay, Mr. Rogers, if you can help me. B2, is that 5.4 miles? Do you know?
Here we go again.
Hang on, I'm there.
The cost was about 500 million, is that correct?
That ain't that much.
Just want to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about in terms of expense.
It's
for
less than
planning
200, I
purpose.
believe.
I'm trying to see if we have a
It
link
was.
in here.
It's less than 200.
200.
I don't have 5.9 miles, and the current estimate is
177 and 184.
177,
184 million? Okay.
and it's 5.9 miles.
5.9.
Correct.
Okay, close enough.
A lot of money, but.
And remember,
You done, Dr. Wilson?
Yes, I'm done, sir.
Commissioner Atkins?
I've got it covered, thank you.
Okay. So Ken, thank you for coming. Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you, Ken.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Mr. Donnell, this is my report.
Okay, and we'll move back on to our regular items on the agenda, Todd.
Next, we move to communication committee reports. I'd like to point out our public hearing on operating and capital expenditure budget for 2019 during Thursday's meeting, Wednesday's
Wednesdays.
meeting.
Yeah.
Resignation of Mr. Ronnie Bergeron, CBA, is attached, and also the October financials are attached in case you want to look at it electronically.
Does anybody have any communication committee reports at this time? Okay, moving to our next item.
Next, we move to President's report.
Past to Wednesday.
We have no old business, we move to new business. Zoning case appeal P2618, property located between Railsback Ridge Road and Bayou Pierre in southeast Caddo Parish, Forming Ranch LLC, the applicant and appellant.
I'll move to advance. If I have a second, I'd like.
We got a motion by Commissioner John Atkins, seconded by Commissioner Lewis Johnson to advance this to, I guess, is this introduction? Is this what this is right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so move to Wednesday. If I say Thursday, I really mean Wednesday. So Commissioner Linda Johnson?
I was going to ask Mr. Clark a question about why did the NPC deny it?
And Mr. Dominic, I did want to speak to my motion.
Okay. we'll let
That's
Commissioner.
fine. I
You'll
yield
yield
to.
to Linda? Okay.
Go ahead. It may be helpful to me.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to know why it was a 5-0 to deny the application?
The MPC used information from NLCOG in the recommendations that this was a protected pathway, and the MPC chose not to approve a subdivision in an area that's already been designated as the future path for 3132, based on our rules and regulation and law that advises us not to approve a pathway that's been designated for a federal highway.
Thank you.
Commissioner Atkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. First, in order of clarification, will this actually be on the Wednesday agenda or the December 6th agenda?
This will be actually on, we will have a public hearing and a vote on the 6th of December.
On the
It's
6th.
only introduction for Wednesday. But we
Okay.
have to advertise.
I
for
see.
that
We're
public hearing.
advertising the introduction for Wednesday. Okay, thank you. On this matter, I share Mr. Clark's view. There's a structured, first of all, I'm not an expert in these matters, but it seems to me there's a structured process that's been in place that we as a community have been working through. We are almost at the end of that path, and I would at least like to allow the process to complete and have this corridor defined, which should be by the end of first quarter 2019. So I'd hate to jump out ahead of the MPC and the other the NLCOG and the other bodies on this matter. So we can all discuss it further on December 6th. I'm sure Mr. Bernstein will be up to speed on all these matters then, and we can have a.
This is in your district.
Yes, sir, it is. Thank you very much.
You finished with me, Mr. Chair?
Please vote this time to move this to Wednesday. Yeah, would be. And that passes 11-0. Next item.
Authorize the introduction of ordinance number 5832, an ordinance amending the budget estimate revenues and expenditures for the Reserve Trust Fund for the year 2018 to provide an additional appropriation of $300,000 from the Reserve Trust Fund to assist tornado victims.
This clears it up. So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Lyndon Johnson, second by Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts. Please vote. Move this to Wednesday.
I gotta get some bass in my voice. That's 3 times. Get some air on my chest.
Mr. Bowman?
That passes 10-1. Next item.
Authorize the introduction of ordinance number 5833, an ordinance to amend section 839 of the Code of Ordinances relative to cruelty to animals to provide that exposure of dogs to certain conditions creates a rebuttable presumption of cruelty to animals, to provide for exceptions and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
So moved.
Second. You want to speak on your motion?
Sure. I know some people had brought up this. Basically, guys, all we're doing is adding an additional piece of legislation that if you have a dog out in the cold weather and it gets to 32 degrees or less, that after 30 minutes, it's safe to say that we can have an ACO get called to go over there to ask the owner to bring the dog indoors. I know some people had said, well, dogs have a fur coat, and I get that, but guys, I went on like Pet MD looking up cold temperature guidelines for dogs. In general, cold temperatures should not become a problem for most dogs until they fall below 45 degrees Fahrenheit, at which point some cold adverse dogs might begin to feel uncomfortable. When temperatures fall below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, owners of small breed dogs, dogs with thin coats, and or very young, old, or sick dogs should pay close attention to their pets' well-being. Once temperatures drop under 20 degrees Fahrenheit, all owners need to be aware that their dogs could potentially develop cold-associated health problems like hypothermia or frostbite. So I think by having some legislation in place that the ACOs could utilize when we do get calls from people in the community addressing a dog out in public, maybe chained up to a tree, and it does fall to 32 degrees, that they could fulfill their job. So I'd like you guys, we can move this forward. I know some issues have been where people said, well, maybe not just all animals, but mainly I'm addressing this to dogs. I'd like you guys to support this, or if you'd like to make some amendments, I'm welcome to those as well.
What's it, 839, is that what it is?
5833.
Okay, I'm on the board on it. I can't support it the way it's written. When you read the portion on the animal control statutes, first thing you have is a definition statute, and I wanted to read you what it says an animal is defined by. If I can get there. Animal means any living vertebrate creature except human beings, including but not limited to mammals, birds, fowl, reptiles, and fish, except when referring specifically to the control of rabies, where the meaning of the term animal shall be limited to mammals, domestic and wild. So I'm taking that to mean cattle, horses. Mr. Bernstein, correct? So the way it's written, we are making an amendment, and I know he's trying to make it dogs and cats.
Change it to canines instead of animal.
But right now, the way it's written, you're talking about, people at North Caddo Parish, people in Keyfield who have cows, cattle, horses. Number two, and I'm sure Commissioner Lyndon Johnson's going to be saying this, so I'm going to get on board first. Seems like we keep making ordinances to protect animals when we can't even protect people and homelessness that are downtown.
How do you think the cats feel?
Then, the cats. And I just don't know 32 degrees. I mean, I don't know if that's don't think I'm too heartless or whatever, but, dogs have fur, they can stay out a little while. I don't,
But they don't sweat.
Maybe 18 degrees.
On their
I don't
skin.
know. It's just not something that I'm, willing to vote for at 32 degrees. Should we take care of our animals? Yes. That animal shelter out there is full, and I was talking to somebody today, we have 200 animals a day, and the reason is because people aren't taking care of the animals in the first place. Dogs get bit, they abandon the dogs, the cats, and things of that nature. So I can't support it. If y'all want to put it on the committee, but if we go to committee, it's not going to help you any, because by the time we get out of committee, it'll be back January, or it may help, but it's going to be a couple months down the road. So that's where I'm at. I can't vote on it the way it stands. So I'm going down the line. Commissioner Lewis Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can appreciate the ordinance. I want to ask, before bringing the amendment or the ordinance, have we spoken to to our director as relates to at the shelter, gotten any input or any discussion with them before bringing this before the body, is my question.
Commissioner Chavez, I'll let
Sure,
you address that.
absolutely. Commissioner, no.
Can I ask, so for clarity's sake, we are suggesting an ordinance that deals with animals and exposure and that type of thing, which I can very much appreciate, but we did not discuss it at all with them. Is that protocol?
That's
I
why I
don't
put
get
my
that.
name
Help me
on
with
it.
that. For clarity's sake, respectfully.
Go ahead.
Sure. Okay. Actually, no, I didn't reach out to them in regards to many other communities throughout the state of the United States have passed legislations like this to protect animals. And although I get what you're saying, that you can't support it, it's not for me. It's not for my dog. My dog's indoors. So I'm worried about, and you say we got a lot of homeless people. I'm not here to, trying to protect all the homeless people. I'm trying to protect the people that don't have a voice, or the animals that don't have a voice. They're stuck out there, and their owners put them out there. They tether them to a tree, and, how do we help the voiceless? Well, create some legislation. Now, I would love to hear Kelvin's thoughts on this, if he thinks, we should do something, or Mr. Clark.
Well, I pressed the thing. I want Travis. He's
Hold on.
Hang on.
Okay. I just wanted, since we all were out of order.
Hang on.
Yes, sir.
All right, Commissioner Chavez, go ahead.
But it's just, I just wanted to expedite this, guys, and we're bringing it out here. This is the work session. This is where we work. I think the idea is good, and I think it's something that we should look at. And there's, we just had a 28-degree day a few days back, and this is something that we should look at for the animals in Caddo Parish. So I'm open to ideas, and that's a great one. So here we have it in front of us, and let's talk about it. Let's work.
Thank you very much. And I am not from a position of, as relates to people and whatever, I can appreciate that. I really mean it out of respect, and it's not a CPAWS issue. I think we would give the same courtesy to Public Works. I think we give it to maintenance and anyone else. I think that if we were going to bring an amendment that affects a certain area, that at the very least, respectfully, we would at least get their input. So if we've not done that, until we do that, I would not be able to support it for that reason. Thank you.
Commissioner Lyndon B. Johnson.
Thank you, sir. Well, one, I was thinking on the same line as you, is with the cattle, the horses. I mean, those ranchers and farmers are not going to be bringing them in when they're out in the field. Two, I grew up as a child with dogs outside, and so basically I would have been in violation of this if we had put this in order. A lot of the area that I represent, they have dogs that are outside. And to have a dog house, I mean, you basically saying bring the dog inside your house instead of having a dog house that's out in the yard. And a lot of people are not going to be bringing their outside dogs into their home because they're big dogs, and that's where they want them, outside, to protect the boundaries of their property. And to bring them in the house, I mean, by that time, someone could break in and they're in the house now. And so the alarm factor that dog might represent is no longer there. I can't support it right now because it's going to put an extreme burden on a lot of people because they've taken steps to put dog houses outside. And then basically what you're saying, if it gets 32 degrees, 30 minutes, somebody can call the animal services. And I want to clarify that we don't have an animal shelter. We have animal services, right, which is totally different. So a lot of things that a shelter would do, we just don't offer those services. But to do this, I mean, you'll have those officers running up and down the street in designated areas. And so if my neighbor has a particular breed of dog that's outside and I might want it, then I'm gonna call them and say, hey, go pick him up. Dog is outside. So neighbor comes home, dog gone, and they be like, well, okay, what happened to my dog? And then you might stick a citation and a fine on top of that. So now it might be $100, $200 to get the dog out. They don't have that money to do that. So you done put an additional burden on someone who has a dog that's been trying to take care of the dog, but the dog is an outside dog. So now we're actually taxing those individuals. And I don't see why we would want to do something like that. And then you just confine it to just dogs. I mean, you got cats, and we've had a program, or they wanted to introduce a program that you spay neuter the cat and then release it back into the community. That was a program that some taxpayers was pushing very hard on. So
violating our own ordinance.
Right, so that would be violating this if we do that and then send them back into the wilderness or into the woods to now be out there. So I just can't support it right now. And at one point in time in Lakeview, there was about 20-some horses that was up there on the property that they weren't inside, they was outside. So you gonna pick up them 20 horses? Where you gonna stage them at? We don't have no place
The
to
horseshoe.
put them.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, we don't have nowhere to put them. So you got goats that are out there in some neighborhoods. And so what you do with those? Chickens? Yeah, I mean, some chickens. I mean, I saw on Jefferson Page Road some goats. And Motown too. I mean, you got goats. So what you do with those? So, I mean, I think that it's well thought that you want to try to do this, but at the same time, I just don't think that we have the resources to do it, and have the. I mean, you're talking about all animals, not just dogs. I know dogs is man's best friend. That's the phrase. But at the same time, what makes them more special than cattle, horses, cats, goats?
Can y'all in the audience, y'all please quit talking. If y'all need to talk, you're gonna have to go outside, okay?
So I just think that we might want to pass on this and maybe think of something else when there is a animal services committee meeting. I'm through.
Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts.
Thank you, sir. I have to piggyback on what Commissioner Johnson just said. Just a few days ago, I think I made contact with Director Samuel about a homeowner who had to raise their standards in their yard to make sure that they could properly take care of their pet because somebody called about it and they were not aware that it was an ordinance about, their animal and their condition. So to a person like that who's just spent a significant amount of money to get their pets back and to come back and to say, now that's not gonna work, that's not suffice, they can't stay outside, they have to come into your home. I think this is gonna be requiring a lot of the citizens to do. And in the same regards, to shed more light on what Commissioner Johnson was saying, that so many people are uneducated about the policies and the procedures and the ordinances that are already in place in Caddo Parish, and they're already violating them. We're gonna have another issue with that being said. Also, I have to say what Commissioner Dominic said about right here on the agenda. We have coming on very soon, November is National Homeless Awareness Month. And we see people sleeping on benches, under bridges, right at our courthouse. We talked about this some time ago when you brought it up. I could support something like that, for the people. Not against the pets, but for the people that are out there. I wish that there was some type of ordinance to protect them, because my job is to improve the quality of life of citizens, which are people, but not excluding those pets. I want them to be safe. Also, I think that we are back again once in day-to-day operations, which I entrust Dr. Wilson to take care of that. So I'm out of my league if I would support something like this. But I would tell you this, I would support something as far as raising awareness, some type of literature, maybe mail outs or, billboards. I would support something like that, but I could not support this ordinance for those reasons. Thank you.
Commissioner Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Right. Let's see where we start. Well, first of all, we will tentatively, as a result, I would like to thank you, everybody's comments, and including yours, because I know you care, Commissioner Mario, for animals just as well as I do, and a softer spot for the dogs, but we can't exclude them. What we can do is we don't have to wait till next year. We can see tentatively for December 6th, Animal Service meeting.
I'll have to look.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know we're full on the 3rd.
Okay. And they're definitely tilted over on the 5th. That's the last one, Todd. Okay. What I want to do, and again, out of respect and by right, we have to defer to the person who's day-to-day daily operations is in charge of this, and I would like to hear feedback from him. What are we currently doing? First of all, Mr. Travis, if you don't mind coming to the front, and I appreciate you being here. And hello to you too, Mr. Samuels.
How's everybody doing?
Hello, how you doing, Travis?
All right.
I guess in a nutshell, and from your professional side, what are we doing either at the shelter currently, and what can be done currently in the community? Because as I see, there's a conflict kind of with what you're trying to do and how this is written. So legislatively, what we can do is meet as the committee and try and see how we can go with that. But I don't want to go against the grain of a professional who can tell us what we can do and what we're already doing.
Okay, so as far as the Caddo Parish ordinance, there is already a clause in there about having charge, custody, or possession of any animal, either as an owner or otherwise unjustifiably fails to provide it with proper food, drink, proper shelter, or proper veterinary care. It's just not the temperature ratio involved in that. The only issue, well, the issue that I see with enforcing it the way that it's written currently is that you're going to have people with Malamutes, Huskies, Shepherds, Chows, and dogs like that that are more adept to dealing with cooler temperatures. But I mean, you guys are the commissioner, you know, you pass it, we enforce it. I don't have an issue with it.
But do you see a challenge with us enforcing if we were able to cultivate that law to be amended?
Well, I mean, somewhat, because you're going to have, everyone's going to have their own perception of what's adequate shelter versus inadequate shelter.
Is there something like scientifically or dealing with animals that there's a certain temperature that they would be in hazard or danger of?
Okay, well, because this is being added in the cruelty section of the ordinance,
Correct.
This is an animal that would need to be seized, right, as property. So now the animal has to go to a veterinarian as soon as possible to prove that the core temperature has decreased in order to justify prosecution. If we don't take the animal to the emergency vet or vet as soon as possible to prove that, then we put ourselves in line for getting backlash for falsely impounding someone's animal and can't prove that it was at a cooler temperature than it should have been. Those are the only issues I see with it.
Right, and that's why I kind of remember too, and you're absolutely correct. I called Dr. Wilson, and some of us have to actually write this. And on the 5, that's where it would constitute and fall under that, where it says impounds or confines or causes to be impounded or confined in a pound or other place a living animal and fails to supply it during such confinement with proper food, proper drink, and proper shelter. No animal shall be left unattended in the vehicle if it subjects the animal to cruel conditions. An animal control officer, upon a complaint of this nature and in the presence of at least one witness, shall be permitted to use all reasonable means, including breaking the window, in order to free a suffering animal in the following circumstances, all of which must be met. A, the animal shows physical signs of heat exhaustion, convulsions, or other symptoms which require immediate action by the animal control officer and or to save the animal's life. Also in section B, right under that, the animal control officer receives approval from the supervisor, which would probably be Mr. Samuel or whoever's on charge and duty, taking action provided that a supervisor is readily available, and obtaining approval will not seriously impede the rescue of the animal. Prior approval is not necessary if in the judgment of the animal control officer or the delay in obtaining such approval would jeopardize the life of the animal. And let's look at C right next to that. Reasonable effort to contact the owner or driver of the vehicle has been attempted and is unsuccessful. That's if it's dealing with an automobile. 6, carries and causes to be carried a living animal in or upon a vehicle or otherwise in a cruel or inhumane manner. Due to time constraints by my
Thank you, Matthew.
But my facts are true.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynn. Commissioner Melvin, you're reading like Matthew.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I only knew that because I did this like 4 years ago.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Cawthorn.
Thank you, President Dominique. First of all, I'd like to once again applaud Commissioner Chavez for his nuanced process and thinking,
His what,
and
sir?
his exuberance to his nuance approach to problems
Mario
in
for
the
governor.
community, and his exuberance as the way he puts forth his job. But I want to say this. This is reminiscent of the very spectacular idea you had as it relates to the downtown porta potty. Once again, I would admonish you as the chairman of the Long Range Planning Committee, do some long range planning about this process, and then let's take it back to the horseshoe so we can adjudicate it.
No pun intended.
So I don't know if we can put that in the form of a friendly amendment or just a suggestion on your part. Thanks, President.
Okay, Lewis, you already spoke, didn't you?
Yeah, I was going to call for the question.
Commissioner Chavez?
Sure. I'll make a motion to move this to Animal Services.
Second.
And if I can speak on that really quick.
Yes, sir.
When we move it, it won't be about animals. We're just strictly dealing with dogs. I think we all know that. And we're not talking about dogs that have a doghouse because it's in here. And realistically, getting into the day to the day, we are the legislator, and I think we should propose legislation that we see fit that our constituents call us on, and this is something that I was called on. So I figured we should put it out here for a vote and follow the democratic process. Obviously, we can see which way this is going, but this is this isn't about homeless people. You guys know I care about homeless people.
Yeah.
I'm all about them and getting them the necessities that they need. Likewise, this topic I'd like to stay on topic. We're dealing with dogs, so. We'll send this to to Animal Services.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll talk about it and see the best case scenario in there. And I don't want to apologize for not getting the director involved with it. More so, I wanted us to create the legislation. And like you said, if it's written, I'll follow the rule. I mean, that's our job. My job is not to go to you and tell you how to do your job. It's to create it, legislate it, hand it to Dr. Wilson, and he executes it. So that's the intent of today's legislation. But I appreciate your guys' vote to move this to Animal Services, and I trust Bowman to take care of it from there.
And you know I will. You'll be
Yes,
right
sir.
next to me.
Thanks,
And we'll
guys.
wait back for feedback
Thank
from
you.
Todd. I'm
Louis,
out of order.
are you
Call
on-
for the question.
Okay, so it was call for the question, no second, so we'll move on to our next item.
Second.
Very too late.
He called for the
Yeah,
question.
but you know there was no second.
No, he called for my questions to move it to to move to Animal
He
Services.
he called for the question.
Oh, well, he-
No one said a second, so.
Oh, okay.
I had second Mario's to take it to committee, whatever.
Okay.
Move it to
No, you
committee.
got a second, no, you
Right.
got a second on that.
You talking about the first?
He called for the question and it died for lack. Okay, so, I think we're back to our motion to move this to the committee, but, from what I've just heard and listened to it, I think we have laws and restrictions that are on the books, and, I think we just need to kill it now, so I'm gonna vote no. Commissioner Linda B. Johnson?
Well,
And I want to say one thing. Voice, my dog's got plenty of voice. He barks all the time, drives me crazy, so. And then I know you care about the homeless, and I know it's not anything about homeless. I was just saying that we always seem to be doing so much for the animals sometimes we forget about homeless, so. Commissioner Linda B. Johnson?
Okay. In my discussion, I didn't even talk about the homeless because other commissioners already hit up on that. My deal is with my constituents in District 2, and I know there's some in other districts as well that have outside dogs that don't come into the house.
I got one.
And that's the issue that I see before us. And passing something like this, they won't know about it. And then next thing you know, they getting hit with citations. That's the issue I got mainly with this. And then it's just strictly with dogs. I mean, and there's other animals that are outside. So what's the difference between a dog outside and a goat outside and a cat outside? If you can't tell me what's the difference between the three other than a few people want dogs to be captured and come inside the house, I can't support it. Thank you.
Commissioner Bowman?
Oh, I didn't even press it this time. You recognize it.
Okay,
but
we'll
I'll
move
go.
on.
Darn.
Sorry.
No, yeah, that's good. I understand. We can do this once Mr. Clerk confirms. I guess Wednesday or something. And I
Okay.
appreciate that last minute request.
All right, so the motion has been made by Commissioner Chavez and seconded by Commissioner Mike Middleton to move this to Animal Service Committee. So please vote on that motion at this time.
Chavez?
It's pushed.
Okay, that passes 6-4.
That's correct. That moves it to committee.
There's the committee, okay. All right, next item, Rich Hopkins.
Authorize resolution number 75 of 2018, a resolution approving the holding a special election by Caddo Parish Fire District Number 5, State of Louisiana,
Move to-
Saturday, March 30th.
Move to advance.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner John Atkins, seconded by Commissioner Lewis Johnson. Please vote.
Again?
You gotta speak up.
Put some bass in that voice.
Is that what it is?
Put a little bass in that voice.
Tell them, take my
Please vote.
Oh, there you go.
For the record, that's District 8 also.
Ms. Watts?
I voted. It's on.
There you go.
Okay. And that passes 10-0. Next item.
Authorize resolution number 76, resolution to authorize Caddo Parish Administrator consent to annexation by the town of Blanchard, certain right-of-way within the parish of Caddo.
Move to advance.
Second by the
Second.
chair, motion by Commissioner Linda B. Johnson, second by the chair. Please vote. Lewis, you don't need to speak, do you? You're up there.
No, I do not.
Okay.
Thank you. I pushed the wrong button. Thank you, Mr. President.
That's all right. You may have been up there from a while ago. Okay, that passes 10-0. Next item.
Authorize resolution number 77, resolution of Caddo Parish Commission to amend resolution number 27.
Move to advance.
Calumet.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner John Atkins, seconded by Commissioner Lynn Cawthorn. I have several commissioners wish to speak. You need, John, you didn't want to talk on your motion?
Yes, I'll speak to it. It's,
Sure.
we approved, I don't have it open in
Yep.
front of me, but we approved like 7 of these
Sure.
this past year. And they all went down to New Orleans, to Baton Rouge. And 3 or 4 of them, Dr. Wilson's on here, 3 or 4 of them were kicked out due to, so the ITEP awards were kicked out due to some legislation and timing of the legislation. So there's only 3 that still remain, and we need to change the, or we need to provide the proper address for the locations. So it's a technicality regarding, we didn't have the proper address for the locations on these facilities. So, we've already approved them. Some of the things we approved were kicked out by Baton Rouge, and now we're just attaching proper addresses to the ones that were approved.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Commissioner Linda B. Johnson?
I have to abstain from voting because Calumet is my employer.
Okay. For the record, reflect that Commissioner Linda B. Johnson is sustaining due to the fact that he is employed at Calumet.
He will need to vote abstain. I don't want to vote.
Okay. Please vote.
I was just stating the reason why.
Yeah. He's following proper protocol.
Maybe John won't be right if I.
All right, that's 9 with 1 abstention. 9-0, 1 abstention. That passes. Next item.
Resolution resolution
78.
number 78, okay. A resolution authorizing Southern Hills Homeowners Association to change the scope of the NGO projects.
Moved by Commissioner Chavez, seconded by the chair. Is there anybody wishing to speak? Stormy, do you need to speak? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. President, I would like to move to englobo resolutions number 78, 79, 80, 81, and 82 to advance to Wednesday.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts, seconded by Commissioner Mike Middleton to englobo advance item number 78 concerning Southern Hills, 79 concerning the holidays, 80 early voting, 81 Alzheimer's Month, and was there another one? 82 Lung Cancer Awareness Month. Please vote so Stormy can go home and start her cooking. Commissioner Bowman, you got something?
I do, for real. It ties in. So I see that what we in Globo, you have to authorize, and I would like to support, and I'm sure Chavez would too. But it's quite ironic we're authorizing a resolution to recognize homeless awareness.
You see the homeless people in there?
month.
Thank you,
That's
Commissioner
great.
Bowman.
So I just want to know where we are. We can research at the next meeting, though. Whatever happened to the portalets? Because we're not taking care of y'all talking about the elders. We're not taking care of the humans. Nobody. Thank you. Don't be mad.
Where is that homeless?
It's right
which one
at the
is?
bottom.
We ain't got to it yet.
No, it's in this englobo.
It's in the
No, it's not.
Globo.
Is that the one they're
Well,
coming to speak on?
This is for the appropriation that St. Mary of
Okay,
the Pines.
please vote.
It's not there yet. We ain't not done it yet.
That's right. He's talking about here. Remember when they figured the homeless?
Mr. Bowman?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, no. I'm talking about right here. Authorized special.
Okay, that passes 10-0. Next item.
Authorize appointment to Caddo Parish Industrial Board.
Move to advance.
Moved by Commissioner Atkins, seconded by the chair. Please vote.
Mr. Chair, let me just mention, I neglected to forward Mr. Frierson's bio to Todd until today. So Todd will have it on there for Wednesday. So you all, if you're interested in seeing the bio, please keep an eye out for it.
We need to penalize you for that.
We trust you.
All right, please vote. Commissioner Linda B. Johnson.
I would like to, in global and advance, the authorization of Ms. Bernie Howard, the authorization of the special resolution of recognition for the Best of Times News, the authorization of special resolution to recognize Homeless Awareness Month, and authorize the end of the year appointments.
Second.
A second. Can have one amendment. I think that Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts is supposed to be on there as a co-sponsor for the Homeless Awareness Month. If you can make sure she's put on there. Is that correct, Stormy?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please vote.
Let me point out before y'all vote, now these appointments at the end of the year will not come up until the 6th. It gives you 2 weeks to look over them.
Thank you. Please vote.
Mr. President,
And that passes 10-0?
that's fine. May I make a point
Sure.
of order? Todd, I see Ronnie Bergeron, he's on this list. Is that, but didn't he just resign? He's on the
Yeah.
list for the zoning board of
I think
appeals?
it, and I may have added, because I got his letter, and I may have added it to this, is what I'm saying.
Afterwards?
Yeah. And then
Okay.
you,
So we should not be renewing him though.
I'll have to look at it and be
Okay.
sure for Thursday.
Just a
Okay.
point of
Yeah,
clarification.
we'll
Thanks.
clear that up.
Make a substitute motion.
Okay, Mr. Hopkins,
He's on there.
that passes 10-0. Next item.
All right, next we move to commission remarks.
Okay, Stormy said be
I just
short.
got one.
But then you gotta go cook, Mr. Wilson, tell us about it.
Yes,
Come on, Stormy.
I just want to thank Mr. Glass and the staff for assisting in reporting those deplorable conditions in District 7. The homeowner wants to let you all know that they thank you very much and that the area has been totally cleaned up.
All right.
And we hope that we get that same attention to that tire shop on Juella where they're dumping those tires on Denton Street.
Okay.
And I'll keep talking about that until that happens. But thank you so much because I know that wasn't in the parish, but I thank you for playing your part and making sure that the job was done. That's it.
Next item.
We need to check the city.
Todd, we're going on to,
Next we go to citizen comments.
anybody citizen comments for late arrivals? I don't have any cards. Do you have any?
No, sir.
Okay, moving to our consent
Next we
agenda.
move to consent. Let me point out on consent agenda, the items on consent agenda, we will have public hearings on Thursday.
You mean Wednesday?
On Wednesday.
Thanksgiving?
You can come down here and have your vote.
You'll be a turkey.
I might be here.
Last
The
joke.
final passage,
December
we
6th.
cannot have until December 6th because our charter has a specific date before they can be passed. We don't have that time limit having a meeting on Wednesday, so it will be December the 6th.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah.
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn. See y'all. See y'all Wednesday. Hey, keep it quiet. Keep it quick Wednesday.
LBJ.
Everybody just come.
You're bad.